Good day and welcome to yet another exciting, informative episode of the Talkshop with me, Tuck Money. And today on the show, I'm joined by yet another young Zimbabwean who is, doing something for us to experience, that better lifestyle, that better Zimbabwe that we're all trying to work for. And, it's great to have you on the show today. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you very much. How are you? How are you, all listeners, viewers, you name it?
Well, I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I would just like to ask you to just maybe introduce yourself to the guests, those who don't know you, and just tell us a little bit about, what you are known for.
What I am known for?
Yes.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Linda Masarira, the founding president of Labour Economists Afrikan Democrats, a 100% organic homegrown party, which was founded on the basis of ensuring socio-economic rights for every Zimbabwean. We are cognizant of the fact that the political parties that we had before 2019, that is obviously ZANU-PF, and all the formations of NDC had lost touch with the reality of the real issues that are affecting real people on the ground. And we got to a stage where we sat down as former trade unionists and said, which way forward? Is this what we're doing the best in the interest of all workers in Zimbabwe? Because there's now a misconception where people just think that when we talk of workers, we're talking about those who are employed. Okay. Or formally employed. But when we speak of a worker, we are talking about everyone who works, whether in the informal sector, whether in the farms, in the mines, Makorokota. They are all workers because they are trying to create wealth, they are trying to sustain livelihoods. And it was important for us to get to a stage where we say labor matters. And labor issues have been ignored in Zimbabwe for a very long time. We've got a Labor Act which supports the employer more than the employee. We've had trade unionists who have turned into sweetheart unions who are more corrupt than the politicians because they are the ones who go and have shady deals with the employer, take money, enrich themselves, live lavish lifestyles, whilst those they purport to represent continue wallowing in abject poverty. So, in that basis, we decided to form a political party which was hinged mainly on the labor issues in this country. Okay. We decided to form a political party which would work on the economic emancipation of every Zimbabwean regardless of class society. Because when you talk of economics, a lot of people have just thought that economics is for the economists. But we also have to get to a stage where we converge as Zimbabweans, regardless of what you do in the society, what you do in the economy, and come up with ways to grow our economy, come up with ways to do sanction busting. We've had ZANU-PF speaking about how sanctions have affected the economy for more than 20 years. We've had the MDC saying we want more sanctions to be imposed on Zimbabwe or sanctions to stay put. We've had people not understanding what exactly is the biggest problem in this country. But as Labour Economists Afrikan Democrats, we come in and say sanctions and corruptions are like Siamese twins. They affect the economy the same way. We cannot put a barrier and say it's because of sanctions or it's because of corruption, because both sanctions and corruption are working the same way. But how do we get rid of corruption and sanctions? That is what we're working on as a political party, trying to depolarize our political economy, trying to decolonize mindsets in this country. Because people have to understand that politics is not just about MDC or ZANU-PF, but politics affects your day-to-day life. And you have to understand that you have the sole obligation to say, I will stand with this party because it is resonating with my own problems in courts at a personal level. But the problem that we have had in this country is where we had politics of populism since 1980. Where a popular leader chooses to be the demigod of politics in this country. There's no child of a lesser god. Everyone has got an opportunity to participate in governance issues of their country, and that is the opportunity we are affording every other Zimbabwean who feels that they've been closed out in MDC, they've been closed out in ZANU-PF, and they want to play an active role in governance issues in this country. They want to be a councillor, they want to be an MP, they want to plug into the development agenda of this country. So basically what I've been doing since 2019 is to ensure that we deal with the decolonization aspect of our political economy, the decolonization of mindsets, because we are all still stuck with the colonial hangover. And nowadays we are suffering from the neo-colonialism, which is now the order of the day in our political economy. We're working on depolarization of mindsets. We don't have to hate each other because we've got different political opinions or different political perceptions or different political ideologies. Having different political ideologies does not mean enmity. It just means that we've got a different view or a different way that we think things are supposed to happen. If we can tolerate each other in our families when we go to different churches, why can't we tolerate each other when we have different political opinions?
Okay.
The biggest challenge that we faced as a country is we are still drunk with a hangover from the Robert Mugabe era and the Morgan Tsvangirai era, where they reduced our politics to an insult contestation. And we are coming in as fresh blood, as the younger generation, and saying united we stand, divided we fall. A house divided against itself will not stand. And we have to learn to work each other, united in our diversity, to rebuild this country and ensure that we mend the broken social fabric that we have today. There's nothing that we benefit from hating each other. There's nothing that we benefit from insulting each other. There's nothing that we benefit from cyberbullying each other, but we only take our country backwards. Then lastly, as a party, we're working on the devolution agenda for Zimbabwe. We're saying every province should benefit from its own mineral resources. There is no reason why everything should be centralized in Harare. We have had provinces not developing for the past 40 years. Some places are now looking like ghost towns. Go to Kadoma, go to Bindura, go to Mount Darwin. There's no development whatsoever. But we know that the bulk of the gold that comes out of this country comes from Mashonaland Central. But the town still looks like a shanty town in the 20s. We want development to happen at local levels, to happen in ward areas, to happen in constituencies, and not everything to be centralized right here in Harare. So that's what we're working on, because we believe that we need every Zimbabwean empowered. We need every child, every native Zimbabwean having access to creating wealth in this country, because Zimbabwe is a very wealthy country with a vast mineral resources, very arable land, a very good weather. So there's no reason why anyone should live an impoverished life in this country. We're living an impoverished life because we focus on the negatives. We don't focus on the positives. We love everything that is foreign and do not take time to say, what can we do collectively together as a people to ensure that we all have equal opportunities to create wealth and to grow our economy.
Wow, that's a mouthful. But, I picked up a bit there. You're talking about how corruption and sanctions are Siamese twins. Also, at the same time, because people have different opinions, that doesn't mean that the family is broken. We still can come together and be united, debate and come up with, solutions to these things as a united family instead of, being divided and that sort of thing. That's very cool. I wanted to talk to you about, shaping Zimbabwean politics. Like, do you think that Zimbabwean politics needs reshaping? And in that same question, I would say, what would you say would be the role of women in shaping Zimbabwean politics?
Actually, Zimbabwean politics doesn't need a reshaping. It needs a complete system overhaul.
Okay.
The type of politics that we have in this country is borrowed. And as it is borrowed, we have also not appreciated the type of politics that we borrowed. I always give an example of how the war veterans, when they took over power in 1980, did not make an effort to change the system. They came and inherited the Smith regime system, the colonial master system, which is still at play today in this country. That is why we're always crying that we've got an oppressive government, we've got a suppressive government, we've got a repressive government, because we're still using laws that were left in place in 1980 by the Smith regime. We have so many legal gurus in this country, but we have never seen an effort from those so-called in courts legal gurus trying to change the legal system, trying to change the justice system, trying to change the governance system. They are so fixated in pleasing their masters in the West or the East, because we all know that ZANU-PF has got its allies in the East and the MDC has got its allies in the West. But as Labour Economists and African Democrats, we are saying we don't need those allies in the West and the East. We need to find each other as African people and say, what is it that works in the Zimbabwean context? What is it that works in the African context? Everything that we use in Africa is borrowed. And that is why Africa is not going anywhere. I'm one person who researches, who reads, who watches documentaries. And from my own research, I realized that neither the West or the East have got the best interests of Africa at heart. They are only interested in what they can take out of Africa. And they know that we love money so much, we love freebies, we love aid. We will do anything to get aid. But we are coming in and saying, what aid? To hell with the aid. We need reparations. They built their economies with the blood, sweat, and wealth from Africa. And if they want to help Africa, they should take back what they took from Africa. They should bring back what they stole from our country. And then we find a way of rebuilding our economy without their bookish economics, which have failed to work in this country. We go back to the ISAP era. They brought ISAP knowing that it had failed in most countries in Africa, but they still advised Zimbabwe to use ISAP, which further impoverished Zimbabwe. If we look at all the problems that we have, we can trace them backwards to IMF and the World Bank. And unfortunately, our leaders still run to the IMF and the World Bank to do what? It only cost 54 US cents to print $100 US note. And we are selling our minerals for a pittance to those people. Why can't we exchange our minerals for development? Why can't we say we've got 3,000 tons of gold here? We want you to do our roads. We've got 5,000 tons of diamonds, whatever, you name it. We expected development, infrastructural development, and A, B, C, D, and E. Why should we be selling our minerals at a pittance and they've got stocks and reserves of our own minerals, yet we've got nothing in our own countries? So we really need a change of mindset. We really need to fuse our own traditional systems with the borrowed democratic English Eurocentric governance systems to come up with a governance system that works in Africa, in Zimbabwe. That is what we need. As long as we are still using these systems that we borrowed from the colonial masters, I don't see any hope for us going anywhere, because we do not even understand what we borrowed. We don't understand what we're doing. We go to a stage where we have reduced the very same politics to elitism. Our politicians are too elitist. They are out of touch with the reality, with the real issues that are affecting real people on the ground. Our politics is too patriarchal. It views women as second-class citizens. There is no space for women in the politics that we have in Zimbabwe. There's no space for women in ZANU-PF. There's no space for women in the MDC, and that is a reality. And that is the truth that a lot of people hate me for. But that is the reason why I said, hey, women, we need to create our own space. We need to have our own political party. The men who want to join us will come and join us, but we now need to get there right on the dining table and ensure that we are there with our ideas, pushing the agenda for real transformative change, which is democratic in nature, which is developmental in nature. We can't keep on insulting each other and throwing jokes at rallies. That is not politics. People need to understand that when we are talking about politics, we are talking about access to resources. We're talking of sustainable livelihoods. But as long as people still think that that person will transform your livelihood, we still have a long way to go. I'm saying this because after 2018 elections, I asked a lot of people why they voted for the candidate that they voted for. Those who voted for Chamisa said, Angani Chaunga. Okay, but what is it exactly that he said that resonated with you at a personal level, that you would say that if I vote for him and he becomes the president, things will be much better? So does Chaunga translate to good leadership? No one noticed the constitutional violations they did, the misogyny, the fewer number of women that they had, the administration which was poor, the double candidates and everything. Because when you want to be a leader, we have to be able to see it in the way you run the administration of your party. Yeah. Those who voted for ZANU would say, but you're still talking about things that happened 40 years ago. We are in this era. What is it exactly that resonated with you to vote for them? So we've got an electorate that is also ignorant. I'm sorry to say this, but that is a fact. An electorate that does not understand why they are voting, would just think that they have to vote for Chaunga. I admire the electorate in South Africa. They know what they want. When they're voting for councillors, they're voting for service delivery. They will not vote for you because you're coming from Kude Chaunga. Look at the recent local elections that came in. AEP, a party that was formed this year, actually took plenty of seats because the message they were giving to the people resonated with the people's personal aspirations. But here in Zimbabwe, whether or not we have people with the right message, right manifesto, speaking sense, people will not vote for them because they Chaga Chaunga as if they eat Chaunga or cook Chaunga with Zimbabwe. So we need political education in this country. We need to let people understand that we are not going to vote. hauenda kunovhotera fertilizer, hauenda kunovhotera chaunga. Unoterera shoko riri kutaurwa kuti is this word going to transform your livelihood at a personal level? Are you going to also get an opportunity to participate in developing your own local area? The other unfortunate thing in our country is people think that development happens at presidential level. No, development happens at what level? You should vote for a councillor you know. A councillor you can interact. A councillor will have council meetings with the people in the ward almost every week or at least every fortnight. That is the way we can have progress and development. But as long as people continue voting for the Chaunga councillors who do not even stay in the wards, there is no development that will come, and that is the reality. When we talk about women, it's a sad story in Zimbabwe. The results in 2018, we only had 23 elected MPs who are women out of 210 MPs. That is nearly 11% of the parliamentarians went in with direct elections. That shows how MDC and ZANU-PF do not care about constitutionalism, because Section 17 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe is clear on the issue to do with gender balance. And when we speak about upholding the constitutions, we are not saying we will take a certain section of the Constitution and uphold it. When we talk of constitutionalism, we should uphold the Constitution in its entirety. And what MDC and ZANU-PF showed us in 2018 is that they've got no regard for women whatsoever. It is unfortunate that the women in the so-called parties as well, next time. Which next time? Women should stand their ground and demand their rights to be upheld and respected as enshrined in the constitution of this country. But as long as women still feel that they want to be crying babies, they want to be following the chauvinistic politicians who do not care about their rights, especially when it comes to governance issues, then there will never be a space for women. But from our end, from our side, we have been trying to ensure that all our structures are 50-50 gender balanced. Our executive is 50-50 gender balanced. The president is a woman, the vice president is a woman, the chairperson is a woman, the spokesperson is a woman, my presidential spokesperson is a woman, and we've been trying to ensure that we infuse all ages. The 20s, the 30s, the 60s, the 50s. We are saying that we need a convergence of ages. We're not saying G40 or vechidiki chete chete or madara chete chete, but we all need each other. We need the wisdom from our elders. We need the wisdom from the younger generation who are very tech savvy, who understand the future going forward. We need my age group, the mid-30s, because we've got also the input that we're going to plug into the growth of this country, to the growth of the political party. And we are going to do this against all the odds. We know we're facing a lot of criticism. Why are you an all-women's party? Why are you pushing women only? But women have been marginalized for a very long time. We haven't been crying. We tried to get in. You elbowed us out. You wanted us to be praise singers. I'm not a praise singer. I will never praise sing anything that is negative because 1 million people are doing so. I will speak the truth to power, and I will take you to task as long as I know that you're wrong. And at the end of the day, there's no one who's got a monopoly on opposition politics. There's no one who's got a monopoly on leadership. We've had people who have been MPs since 1980 in ZANU-PF. We've had people who have been MPs since 2000 in the MDC. And they now have this sense of entitlement that this is our space. But what have you done? They should do an introspection that what is it that they have done that have changed the livelihoods of the people? Nothing. We need new fresh blood in Parliament in 2023. And my clarion call to everyone out there who's watching is 2023. Vote for a councillor you know, for an MP you know, and for a president who resonates with your aspirations. Not Chaunga, not fertilizer, not Mbe.
Okay. And you're turning 40 next year.
Yes.
And you'll be eligible to run for the president, for the presidential elections. How are you preparing for this?
How are we preparing for that? We're having, like right now, we're having provincial conferences. 2 weeks ago with National and Central. It wasn't easy. We were attacked by the war veterans. They wanted to attack us, but they didn't succeed because we know our rights. We managed to stand our ground and say you've got no power to come and interrupt this meeting. Though they managed to intimidate other people and some people ran away. Naturally, people are afraid. We also had problems with the police until we called the Commissioner General and all that, demanding our democratic space to do our politics. We are mainly doing mobilization in rural areas for now. The main reason being 70% of the electorate is in the rural areas. We are really not focusing on people in the urban areas for now. We'll deal with them in 2023, because I realized and I noticed that most people in urban areas are just excitable about social media politics. And we're not going to waste our energy on that. We will let the people see the work that we've done for themselves and for them to be able to make their own decisions come 2023.
Okay.
We're basically doing our door-to-door campaigns, and they're ongoing every day. Yesterday we had a team in Mapuku, we had a team in Epworth. Today we've got teams in Banket, in Chinoi. That is what we're doing. We're trying to interact with people at a personal level to have them understand what we're doing. I don't believe in the rally concept, because for me a rally is too elitist and there is no engagement. You don't get to understand the issues that are affecting people on the ground. I prefer the small meetings where I speak and people ask me questions and we interact, and I get to understand what people are facing and what needs to happen in a particular area. That is the type of politics that I subscribe to. I don't subscribe to elitism, because I want to understand issues affecting people. If you see our messaging in every place that we go, it actually resonates with people in that particular area. I can't go into Marsh Central and start talking about diamonds and people not having access to diamonds, or people not having access to other things that are accessible in Manicaland. I can't go to Manicaland and start talking about water crisis because there are plenty of water. So our messaging is actually applicable to the people who we visit. We ensure that we resonate with the issues that are affecting them and proffer solutions. We are a solutions-oriented party. We want to show people what we can do. That is why so far, out of the 1,954 wards that we have in Zimbabwe, we've got about 1,000 shadow MPs right now. And out of the 210 constituencies, we've got about 184 shadow MPs. And we're saying work with the people, get to understand them, get to understand what they want. Because we don't want to get into a situation where we get into power and we start disconnecting with the people or start acting like the very same people we want to remove from power. We want people to understand that we're a party with a difference. We've got a courage to be different. We want to work with people, and we're not going to impose leaders on people. All these shadow councillors and shadow MPs that we're talking about, there were people that were forwarded or seconded by people in that particular area, that they know them and they're influential leaders, and that they can be able to represent their interests, which have been ignored over the past 40 years.
Okay. Okay, so can you please just elaborate to me or explain for me why the sudden silence around Pollard right now?
I don't understand your question. Maybe because I'm not a Pollard member, and there's nothing that I can speak about Pollard. But what I can say is Pollard was actually not a creation of ZANU-PF, for people who don't know. The Pollard document itself was crafted by myself and Priscilla Masarira when we were still in the MDC, because we had a vision that we need to unite politicians in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And it was taken to the president of Zimbabwe, by then president when I was still in the MDCT, Thokozani Kope, for consideration. It was actually considered. So what I have noticed is that the people who were behind the brains of Pollard are no longer there, and it has lost its steam and it has lost its direction, and it is up to the Secretariat in Pollard to ensure that they restore the initial vision of Pollard, which was to unite political party leaders, so that we have them at a point where they can discuss things that can build Zimbabwe. Why? Because we have had politics of antagonism for the past 20 years, where people are saying, if I'm not there, Ajite, Kanisipo Ajite, but who are you? You live a lavish lifestyle, wherever you live it there, you drive fancy cars, you do everything, but you're saying people should continue suffering because you're not there. I don't subscribe to that type of politics. And I think that if all political leaders in this country care about the people of this country, there's a time we should take off our political jackets, put aside our egos, and say, how do we develop Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans? I've always gave an example of how Hillary Clinton lost elections to Donald Trump. Even though she had the popular vote, she went and congratulated Donald Trump and said, how do I assist you to make America great again? What is it that makes us as Zimbabweans say, can I nini disipo inini, zunungashitoramba, ndinodira jecha? Why? Are your interests for Zimbabweans or interests for self? I think we need to introspect on that. That was the basis we crafted the initial Pollard concept to say we need to get to a stage where we say, okay, fine, after elections, but how do we help for accountability purposes to ensure transparency of the incumbent? He needs checks and balances. Where do those checks and balances come from? From the peers who lost elections. We have to be able to hold you to account and say, Mr. President, apa murikutadza dai maita A, B, C, D, and E. We also have to be able to have access to the man himself who's in charge of this country and tell him what apa murikutadza. That is what we're trying to create with Pollard. We're trying to unite political leaders. We're trying to unite Zimbabweans to show that we can all work together. If Zimbabweans managed to work together in 2009 during the GNU, why do we have so much hate these days? Why do we hate each other to the level of saying the economy should fail, my rates my price people should suffer so that the next election they vote for me? For me, that is not politics. We are just making people suffer for selfish interests, for self-aggrandizement, and that should stop. And my clarion call again to the president of this country, Mr. Mnangagwa, is he should sit down with his team and see that they've got people who can push the Pollard agenda forward, who can reunite the country, so that he can also have people around him in Pollard who can hold him to account. But at the end of the day, we don't know what's happening in Pollard. We don't know their achievements. We all want to know what Pollard has achieved, including myself. I want to know what Pollard has achieved. I'm not a Pollard member, contrary to what everyone else says on social media. That is the tragedy of our social media, which is so polarized, filled with so much propaganda. You get attacked and insulted for an establishment that you're not even part of. I also want to know what Pollard has achieved. I also want to know the way forward for Pollard. How have they been holding the government to account? We have seen Maduku. Maduku has been holding, President Professor Maduku has been holding the government to account. We saw him criticizing even the amendment of laws and etc. We have seen what he's been doing at a personal level. But the people also need to know what Pollard has been doing so that people will stop commenting on propaganda. I really think that Pollard needs a robust information department that is in touch with the people of Zimbabwe, that can communicate what they are doing and their achievements so that people understand what Pollard is all about. Because at the end of the day, when you have everyone criticizing you, you need to do also your checks and balances on whether you're doing the right thing as an advisory body to the president of this country.
Okay. We're celebrating 16 days of, or commemorating 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And as we were having a short conversation just before we were rolling, I want us to have this conversation. There's, this continued silence around the treatment, Mary Chiwenga. What is your opinion to this whole issue?
My opinion is Mary Chiwenga's case is in the courts of law in this country. And I don't think there's a reason why Mary Chiwenga should be treated differently because she was a former wife to the vice president. It is unfortunate that there are some people who want to do politics with the Mary Chiwenga case. And at the end of the day, people should also understand that Mary Chiwenga actually comes from a privileged position. There are a lot of women, I've been in prison before, who are in worse situations. We've got no lawyers to represent them. The law is always the law, and the law is an ass, and the law is stubborn. I was talking about this earlier on, that there are some things that you cannot change about the law. And no matter how much people can speak out or in their millions, they can never change the course of justice or the law itself. And I will speak from a personal opinion. There's a time when Mary evicted families from a farm that she took. I tried to reach out to her when women and babies were seated outside. She told me that it was none of her business, the farm was hers. She didn't have empathy for women like her whom she had evicted. We even made a clarion call, at least talk to the Sabukos in Dombosha. You have the money, you've got the funds, but or anything. She was not even moved at all. And then now, because Juga Zachinja, everyone is supposed to have empathy on Mary, who had no empathy for people she evicted from a farm. I mean, sometimes when we speak about these issues, life just has its way of going around. And for me, Mary comes from a position of opportunity. She comes from a very wealthy family. She can afford anything that she wants at any particular time. If you scroll back on Twitter around April, I think, when Mary had tweeted something about her marital challenges that she's facing, ndakamunyorera pachivana ndikati nyaya idzi dzevanhu vaimbovata vese dzinoita sei dzinonetsa. Shedza nasekuru vako vanotaura nasekuru vachiwenga mugadzirisane pai paukama. Ndo zvaitwa pasi chigare nanhasi kune mafamilies anoteedza chivanhu vanoziva kuti kana paita conflict pakati pemurume nemukadzi zvinogadzirwa at family level. But mukada kuita pride moenda kumadzitaredzi mhosva anoshandisa masystem asiri edu anandichataura zviye macomplications akaitwa. People will say, why are people not speaking out? We're not judges, we're not magistrates. There is nothing that we can change. People have been speaking out on social media, I think, for the past 6 or 7 months. Has anything changed? So even forcing me, I see on my Twitter thread the day, I was like, what's is the situation going to change? Their family should just do the honorable thing and go and meet with their former in-laws, family. Because at the end of the day, if they want to use the legal route, they will use their own prescriptions, which none of us can change, and that is the reality. If they want to sort out, even sort out at a family level, not on Twitter, not in the court of public opinion. Paya unokotukwa kushorwa kana nevanhu vanokuti aiwa zviri wrong, but havana zvinoita sei zvinochinja. If Mary really wants to sort out her issues, she should swallow her pride and go back to ex-husband and say, takatadzirana, I'm sorry, ngatigadzirisane itende kumberi. Sometimes saying I'm sorry, apana zvainokuuraya, apana chaunobva. But the pain that you'll be facing, or the embarrassment or the humiliation, should let you humble yourself for you to get access to your children, for you to get your life back in track. But ukada kuzvita gona, pane munhu ari kuzviti ndiri gonawo. Izo tinongotarisa, utongoti kwa zvichaperera uchi, takaita sei takatarisa. My advice to even Kenimba you, shekuti mwana ndewenyu ndiye ari kutambura. Toraya sekuru vanotaura neformer in-law yenyu mugadzise zvinhu zvenyu at a family level, far away from the mating crowd, because the mating crowd is not going to help Mary anyhow, and that is the truth.
Okay, and feel free to respond to this as a mother, a female politician, a sister. What is some advice that you would give to other young Zimbabwean women out there?
My advice to young Zimbabwean women out there is, don't let anyone limit you. Don't let anyone stop you. And don't let anyone change your dreams. Why am I saying this? We have had a lot of young girls who had potential to be very good politicians. We had joined lead. I remember the other one, she was our spokesperson in Mutari. She had to leave the party because her boyfriend said, and the chakurore because of bitter politics. We have had other young girls who would say, my parents are politics, and I think these are real challenges that face women most of the times. They are not allowed to follow their dreams. They're not allowed to live their to live their passion. There are a lot of women who want to do great things, who want to be MPs, who want to be councillors, who want to take the bull by its horns, but they get limited by the men in their lives, by family. And at the end of the day, they end up living lives of regret, lives of sorrow. And we need parents that are supportive to the interests of their children. Like, for example, we've got a spokesperson in our party for the youth league. It's called the Young Lead. She's only 18 and in upper 6. I had to sit down with the parents and say, this is what your daughter wants. She came and looked for us. Support her. Ensure that she lives her dream. And the parents understood where we're coming from. So at the end of the day, parents should stop telling politics will offer, politics will die. Passion. Let the child live a dream. And as parents, we should also stop dictating to children what degrees they should go into, what career path they should take. Children should be able to live their dreams and be what they've always aspired to be. And lastly, to the women in abusive and violent marriages. Violence are so. I've been in 4 marriages and I left because of domestic violence. Because I value my body, I value myself. The moment self-esteem inopera, you end up having mental health issues. You end up having high blood pressure. If you look at the statistics, most of the people who take tablets for high blood pressure or hypertension are women, because they have to endure a lot of emotional abuse, physical abuse. They are afraid of going out because women, let's learn to work, let's learn to create our own money, let's create to value ourselves. And let's not tolerate any form of violence, whether emotional, physical, or psychological abuse. Because at the end of the day, we only have one life to live, and that one life is very precious. We should live it in happiness, with inner joy and inner peace. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Linda.
You're welcome.
All right. It was another very entertaining and informative episode of the Talkshop. Today we were joined by Linda Masarira, and it was a very helpful discussion. Thank you very much for opening our eyes to some of these conversations that are going on around us, and hopefully other young people around the country will also be engaged and be involved in our national politics, just to make sure that we're turning our country into the country that we want. So once again, thank you so much. And for you guys, till next time, cheers.